Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys about one of the most nonsensical arguments that I get. Since I've been talking lately a little bit about what I do with what I call orc mode diet, or kind of my spin on a ketogenic diet for lifters, right? For healthy, young, and middle-aged men who want to lift, who want to improve their mindset, their testosterone levels, things like that, and they want diet adherence. Of me promoting this diet, you get vegans who come in and they say the stupidest thing. Like, your diet isn't sustainable for the whole world population. How stupid. Let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. It's like these people have this delusion that they think that somehow that I think that 7 billion people on the planet are going to hear my videos, hear my message, it's going to be translated into their native languages, and they're all going to follow it. So using your logic, guys, let me explain the logic you're saying. Because you don't think the entire world population could follow the diet and training recommendations that I personally use, and what I'm advising some men to use, not everyone, by the way, I've already said there are some people who maybe shouldn't be doing this sort of diet, that there's blood work involved, there's genetics involved, everything else. There's activity level involved, because I would say people with a lower energy turnover shouldn't necessarily be doing this, because I don't think it's ideal unless you can have a high enough energy turnover in TDEE that you can eat significant amounts of protein while still keeping something like fat as a dominant macronutrient. So again, people who have maintenance calories of like 2,500 or less, for men, I probably wouldn't recommend this. You need to build a base. But that being said, because of that, therefore it shouldn't be advised. So using your same logic, no one should ever go get a PhD as a medical doctor, right? No one should ever become a medical doctor, because there's no way all 7 billion people on the earth could sustain that. We don't have the medical schools to actually provide everyone on the face of the earth with an MD. It's just not sustainable, so no one should ever become a medical doctor, right? Or because we can't provide, through some communist state, a squat rack and 500 pounds of plates in everyone's home, that when I say, guys, hey, getting a home gym is a good idea, right, and getting your squat up to 500 pounds is a good idea, you shouldn't do that because the whole world can't do it. I mean, do you understand the absurdity of that argument? Like, do you guys understand how fucking absurd you are to make that statement? That you're talking about stuff that the World Health Organization is recommending to sub-Saharan Africa? That's what you should be following if you live in Texas or Colorado or whatever, and you're a young man who lives it. Your dietary recommendations being given to third world countries with their own economic problems and everything else, that's the diet recommendations you should be taking when you're trying to get maximum jactitude. That should be your dietary recommendations for gaining muscle, changing body composition, improving testosterone levels, things like that. Is that what you're saying? Because if it is, you people are stupid. But, again, this is oftentimes what we expect from people in their weird community. They have their own set of issues. And what people need to understand, who are my recommendations for? Small subset of people. You know what? I would be thrilled to death if one day my channel, which has 109,000 subscribers, if it got to 1 million subscribers, who actually followed my diet advice, my training advice, everything else, 1 million people in the Western world, English, because I'm only going to do this in English, by the way, I'm not going to translate it into other languages. So if 1 million people in the English-speaking world took my advice, hey, I would be ecstatic, and that would be a best-case scenario and borderline unimaginable. You know what? I'm pretty sure, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, I'm pretty sure Western economies could support, right? I'm pretty sure Western economies could support 1 million people eating pork. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there is probably enough bacon and pork ribs for 1 million people in Western countries to make those large staples in their diets just fine. Just fine. Or maybe eating some grass-fed beef. You know what? I bet you there's enough cattle and pigs and even grass-fed beef and free-range chicken eggs and all that stuff. I bet you there's enough that 1 million people could buy those things, and our current situation, our economic situation, could support that just fine. So people get this crazy idea when it comes to nutrition that when we're talking to people who we're trying to give specific advice to certain groups of people, that, hey, if you're a healthy young man and you're genetically predisposed to being able to follow this sort of diet, if you thrive on a higher fat diet, higher fat, higher protein diet, you're trying to maximize things like your aggression, your mindset, because again, that's a lot of it. A lot of it does have to do with that. What I'm trying to do with certain things to boost confidence, to improve mindset, to give men a better mindset towards life, their masculinity, and all that affects their training, their confidence in the gym, their hormone levels, everything, that we need to be taking advice from the World Health Organization on how to structure diet for these people. You're ridiculous. And I'm sorry, I don't buy into the World Health Organization. I'm sorry, that's a globalist organization as far as I'm concerned. It's funded. It has funding from people who I think are insidious and evil. I'm not going to get into who those specific people are. I could name names. I'm not particularly interested in what its advice is. It has no bearing for lifters, for people who are young men living in Western countries who have access to better economics than the rest of the world, who want to get as strong as possible, and who want to change their mindset towards lifting, towards their life, towards their outlook. That's not where I'm going to go to get advice. That's not where I'm going to get advice. And I am trying to create superior people in the sense of stronger, more aggressive, more masculine, more confident. That's what I'm doing on this channel. This is, what is the title of the channel? Right? Strength and Fitness. It's a strength-oriented channel. I want people following this to be as strong and as fit as possible. And the dietary advice to those people is going to be geared towards that. I want people who come here to be better than other people. So I'm not concerned with the economic situation around the globe. I'm not concerned with how much methane a cow or a pig might be producing on the world level. My audience makes up a tiny, tiny segment of that. All right, and when you go look at the data, even the data has been skewed with goofy-ass vegans talking about the amount of pollution that's coming from cattle and everything else. I'm sorry, you better go look at all the other standards around the world. Just like when people talk about plastic in the oceans, you know that the United States only accounts for like 1% of that. That's my audience, is United States. All right, you need to go be talking to China about that. And you know what? Let's talk about the diets. What did I specifically say in some of my other diets? That some of these dietary things that I'm doing personally and I recommend to some people isn't necessarily ideal for people in East Asia, right? Because we're talking about traditional diets of what you may be adapted to based upon where your ancestors have been for the last 2,000 years. You know, that can affect ideal diets. That can affect what you're doing with your training and performance. That does matter. So if you go look at some of the countries that have the highest populations, like China and a lot of East Asia, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to them, right? I wouldn't recommend that to them. And a lot of their best athletes, that's not what they're doing. A lot of them do just fine on fish and rice, and they're winning gold medals just fine on that. So that's not who this is even for. So when I'm discussing this stuff, or my version of a ketogenic diet, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. So the absurdity of it, of me following this or saying, hey, a certain segment of my followers could try this sort of diet based upon how you respond to it, based upon what your blood work looks like, what your energy is like when you're consuming various amounts of carbs versus fat and things. What in the world does the world population or that situation have to do with that? You know what, even many years from now, there's always going to be enough meat available for a few million people in the world to be able to eat meat. And you know what? I'm going to venture to say that there are probably going to be people living in English-speaking countries in the Western world, right? So your arguments talking about the whole world have nothing to do with my target audience. My target audience are people who want to be lifters, who want to be strong, who want to be fit, who want to be athletic, who probably speak English as a primary language. And I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, but that's my target audience. So you goofy-ass vegans who come over here with this nonsense What in the hell are you talking about? What are you guys talking about? Most of you guys are tiny and weak. Most of you guys would get your asses handed to you if you confronted the average one of my followers. Like, you're in the wrong section of YouTube. This is, again, this is for people who lift. This is for people who are saying, hey, I want to be strong. I want to be jacked. I want to be injury free as I get older. So, I mean, again, I'm talking to healthy young men and I'm talking to guys in my age group, because some of the dietary stuff that I'm doing has to do with my own energy levels, my own appetite, my own body's inflammation. For me, as a master's lifter, a lifter in my 40s who is trying to be brutally strong, who's trying to get my deadlift back over 600, get my squat back over 500, while being reasonably lean in my 40s and controlling inflammation and stuff in my connective tissue, right? That's people like me. That's a lot of who my advice is geared towards. I don't care about what's happening in other parts of the world. I don't care about the non-lifting population. That's not my target audience. So when people come over to something like this, which is a niche topic, a niche channel related specifically to fitness and strength, and you start discussing your silly ass economic and social arguments from around the globe to a channel based out of Texas with a guy speaking in English to serious lifters, you have lost your damn mind. You have lost your damn mind. Maybe you could stick around here and you could learn how to lift heavy. You could learn how to eat some pork ribs. You could learn how to change your mentality and not be such a sensitive pussy. It would probably do you some good. Quit eating all the soy. Right? Quit eating all that soy, all that tofu. Try eating some pork ribs and some cheese. And get under a heavy squat bar. And maybe you wouldn't be such a pussy and you wouldn't be crying about this stuff anyways. Problem solved, right? You guys are in the wrong part of YouTube. You're in the wrong channel. This is the wrong area. You guys can go stick to your hippie fitness stuff. That's not where you're at. All right, guys. Well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.